Hey, it's Joyce at Friends Drift In, episode 14 down in Kentucky's Appalachia, and today we're talking about unforeseen circumstances like frost in April, in the middle of April. So we're covering up Mom's blueberry bushes today so that they maybe will get a chance to bloom. And then we're going to talk a lot about just the craziness that is Appalachia in the little winters. Today on Friends Drift In.
For old-fashioned recipes in your garden and needs, while sipping on Kentucky bourbon. You sit right back in your big red hat, we're taking rural back from the urban. Listen to the stories where Kentucky is proud, share the giggles with all of your friends. We all tuned in. Friends Drift In.
Good morning. It's Joyce.
It's Charlie.
It's Friends Drift In, episode 14. What are we going to talk about?
Well, we're going to talk about the weather patterns, and actually we're going to talk about weather wives' tales and weather heritage, I guess is a good word for it. Main thing we'll talk about is the little winters. We'll start off with those because we're right in the middle of Dogwood Winter right now, Joyce.
It is Dogwood Winter. We saw redbud winter kind of come and go. You know, the redbuds have pretty much shot their blooms. Our friend Bee down at Paintsville, she made a bunch of redbud jam.
Yes.
I've never done that, but it sure came out pretty. It's really like a lilac. Probably not something you could do on a commercial basis, you know, in any big term, but you could do it.
You know, it's a lot of those things. There's a lot of old-time recipes like that. There's dandelion jelly, the first jelly. Those are the two first jellies of spring right there is what you would do right now. Of course, we're right in the middle of Dogwood Winter. Dogwood Winter comes about this time. The little winters, as they call them, let's talk about that a little bit. Those, you know, they call them wives' tales, but they're really observations. I mean, but before the weatherman and before the National Weather Service and radar and all that, we still had weather.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and the old folks knew that you didn't plant at least until after dogwood weather, depending on what you're planting. You know, you can go ahead and plant your cold crops, your cabbage, your broccoli, and all that stuff. You can plant
potatoes,
that and potatoes.
Onions.
You plant those. Of course, we're going to talk about planting by the signs on another one down the road. But these people have made these observations, and they base everything on either the moon phases or the blooms. And you got to remember, these trees and everything bloom because of the weather.
Right, okay. And they're a little bit early this year.
They are.
Now, you know, Dogwood Winter is usually not quite here yet, but of course, with all the turmoil that has gone on over the last 12 to 13 months, you know, this Dogwood Winter usually occurs right before our annual Hillbilly Days festival here in Pikeville. And of course, this is the second year that we haven't been able to have Hillbilly Days, which is the second largest festival in the state behind the Derby. You know, it's a celebration of spring, and you know, you never know what to wear to Hillbilly Days. You know, you wear layers because it's cold, it's hot, it's cold, it rains. You know, last week I was running around in a t-shirt, and we were down in the high tunnel, and I wanted to strip off my t-shirt and just run around in a bra, and that's just the way it was because it was so hot. And then you turn around this week and you want to go down there with your sweatshirt on because it is so cold.
You know, and we have tomatoes in the high tunnel, so every morning we have to make, every night and every day we have to make a decision whether to leave the sides up or put them down. Well, we've been putting them down all week. The lows have been in the 40s, even in the 30s. We had a couple frosts last week.
Going to have a frost tomorrow night
Yeah.
as we're filming this, so that would be Wednesday and Thursday. That was right before, you know, this airs on Sunday, but Wednesday and Thursday we're looking to have some frost.
Yeah, tomorrow night it's supposed to be 30 or 31 or 36 tomorrow night and 30 on Thursday night. So, but then it's back to 70s and in the 40s and 50s at night after that. So, you know, these little winters are odd. So the first one was redbud. We talked about that one. Redbud dogwood is kind of the coldest of them.
I think so. Redbud usually it kind of warms up, and then dogwood it seems like it chills out again, and then you know, you keep moving through them, and I mean, there's different ones depending on what part of the country you're in. I mean, next for us would be blackberry. Blackberry used to be that I could count on Blackberry Winter to be the same weekend as we start about the same time I'd go down for the Southern Food Writers Conference in Knoxville. You know, the blackberries would bloom, and it would be about the time that we would get the garden plowed. You know, just kind of set it up, spread, you know, if we were going to spread any more fertilizer, clean up around it, you know, we've got to repair the electric fence around our bean patch, you know, we got to get some of those things done. But that's the time when we start really get moving on.
Well, you know, the weather patterns have changed. They change about this time of the year. You know, we're still have a chance of one more small flood. You know, the elderberry tide, as we talk about it.
Elderberry tide, yeah.
You know, when the elderberries bloom, that's the last kind of rainy part of the season. So, all of us that plant our main gardens in the bottoms, as we call them, by the creek and the rivers and everything. You know, that water, we've already been flooded twice this season beforehand. So first thing you gotta do is wait on it to all dry back out so you can get out there and plow it.
And it's pretty good. We showed you last week, we kind of walked down on the big bottom, and we showed you last week our mint's growing well. You know, it's coming right on up. Our peonies made it through. They're looking beautiful. I haven't gone to see how the buds, you know, whether they survived that last frost.
Well,
we got blackberries that we didn't show you.
Yeah,
well, actually, black raspberries.
Black raspberries. We have black and red raspberries planted this year, so those will be the thing. We'll see a black raspberry winter.
Maybe.
But you know, there's then I guess there's the one that it's got several different names. There's the locust winter. I don't know much.
I've never heard
about that. We've heard people
winter.
talk about it, but they say that you get another cold spell when the locust trees bloom. But the one we're talking about is either Joyce calls it Lindsay Woolsey. A lot of them calls it the Britches winter. Basically, that's the last, and it's the mildest of the little winters.
It's just that little last cold snap.
Yeah, and so people they wouldn't put their wool pants and stuff up until then. That's why they called it.
And you didn't take down your coal morning stoves, your wood burning stoves. You didn't take them down until after. Now, you know, I guess that's kind of an odd thing. I guess, you know, I don't know how y'all did it, but I mean, we always took the stove down come winter. You know, a lot of people up here in the mountains seem like they leave it up all year long.
I guess it depends on where you have it at in the house. Ours was, is actually we call it the middle room, and because we're kind of a shotgun house, it was mine and my grandfather's bedroom, but it set back kind of out of the way, and you know, it ended up being the dining room after you came. But that was the room that we had it, and that was in the center of the house. It would heat the whole house. And y'all had the big potbelly stove at your grandparents' house. Now this was what they call a warm morning stove. This thing was about 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet square. Stood about 4.5, 5 feet tall. You didn't pick that thing up and move it. It was heavy.
Well, I guess it's just the way you've brought up.
It is.
Just the way you've brought up, and you know, you think about, you know, is that where we want to be going again? You know, alternate power. You know, when you know, because it's been crazy. The electric has been, you know, sporadic here.
We've had more problems this year than we've had in a long time.
It goes on, it goes off, it goes on, it goes off, and you know, some days it seems like the furnace is running and it's too hot, and then some days it's too cold. And again, that's just the nature of this time of year.
You know, there's a lot of different things. You know, everything's based, like one of them they call the whippoorwill winter. I saw that.
I've never heard that either.
I hadn't either, but that makes sense because they say that's when the whippoorwills come back from their winter migration into their cold ranges.
I don't think I've ever heard whippoorwills here in Appalachia. Now, we had them at home.
Yeah.
You know, when I lived near Cincinnati, but I don't remember. I don't recall hearing a whippoorwill, you know, call in a while.
But you know, all the old folks had weather folklore, they call it.
Oh, sure. You know,
like,
Mama says Mama still swears, you know, down in her bones, I feel it, it's going to rain,
yeah.
You know, it's going to rain. Or my big toe hurts, you know, it's gonna pour.
Well, you know, you look, but a lot of it observational. Like if you go out to walk outside and you see the tree leaves all turning up, then it's going to rain. You know, that's what they always say. Well, you know, it's going to rain.
And you know, planting season, you know, you did certain things by, you know, when a maple leaf got as big as a squirrel's ear,
Right.
you know, then well that's when you planted this, or that's when you planted that, and you kind of planted not just by the signs, but by what you were seeing. Again, observation. We haven't talked about autumn animals. I reckon we ought to talk about that. If y'all don't know what an autumn animal is, a lot of my friends would say evil, evil, evil,
Yeah.
because they're a very invasive tree / shrub. They were planted here in the mountains. They're indigenous to the China. They're indigenous to China, and they were planted because they are a legume. They fix nitrogen. But why were they planted, Charlie?
Well, they were planted because several reasons. One, they were cheap, and two, they grew fast. They spread. They held back erosion. Was one of the reasons they were put in the mix for mine reclamation. When they would come in and reclaim the mine, the used mining lands, they would come in. They would do this like a hydro seeder, which is a big tank with water and like a shredded paper and fertilizer, and they would just spray that whole area with grasses, trees, bushes, and all that. Well, when they first started doing it, it was all done on what would grow fast, what would hold the ground, and do that. But they didn't realize that what they were doing is they were bringing in these invasive plants. You know, we've got the autumn olive, which is from China, and we've got the wineberry, which is a Japanese wineberry. It's a Japanese. It looks like a red raspberry, but it's not. The biggest.
It has a husk. It's kind of crazy because it has that little husk around it, but it's a good berry for canning.
Kind of like a tomatillo. You know how a tomatillo was a tomato with that little brown husk on it? Well, that husk will open up and it'll look like a star almost around the outside of that wineberry. The only difference between biggest difference between a wineberry and a raspberry is seeds. The raspberry has a lot of seeds, but not near as many as a wineberry.
Wineberry's got a lot of seeds, but it still makes a good
great
jam.
jelly.
We do it at home. We don't do it commercially, but we'll do a few wineberries every year at home. Now, autumn olives are a little bit different. They're a round berry. They're not much bigger than a choke cherry, is what I would call about that size. A small berry. They're red, and they have these flecks of gold in their beautiful berry. Now they attract the birds a lot, so naturally when the birds eat them, they spread them even more, you know. So they're not just on the mine sites now. I mean, you know, they're along the power lines, wherever birds like to congregate. There's lots of them. They are one of the first blooms here in Appalachia. That's probably one of their few attributes. An autumn olive is one of the first blooms, and so for the bees, it's a boon. It's a boon because, you know, after a long cold winter and all these little winters that are hanging in, you know, the autumn olive gives them a little bit of nutrition, and the bees are stirring.
They are, yes. It's swarm season right now. We're going to do a whole show. We're going to get our buddy Neil, I think, to come over, who's the head of the beekeepers here in Pike County, and do a show with us on bees and swarms a little bit later. But they are out working hard right now, and the early blooms are crucial to bees to get them started in the spring.
When you think about winter and the end of winter and coming into spring, what do you think is the end of hibernation? And of course, we are located right in the shadow of the University of Pikeville, whose mascot is a bear.
Yes. And
bears are active right now. They were spotted up right across from the farm yesterday evening, getting into some of the trash cans from some of our neighbors. So the bears are moving around right now, and that's always
makes you a little nervous, doesn't it?
I don't like going down to the farm and thinking that there's bears roaming around. It bothers me. And I mean, you know, we've seen what they can do. I mean, we don't have bees right now because they tipped our hives.
They tipped our hives. They busted open our barrel that had our chicken feed in it one time, and you know, they've been there. Those, you know, we've actually had the local elementary school now, the high school that I went to. They had a bear trap. They caught a whole family of them, that they're in the parking lot of the high school or the elementary school.
Elementary school. Now that when we say bear trap, this was the fishing game.
Yeah, it's fishing game. It's a big barrel. It's a big barrel trap that they would relocate them somewhere else.
Relocate them because I mean, certainly you don't want bears roaming around next to your babies.
Well, and people don't realize that with the shutdown, we've got a lot of state parks here in Kentucky, and with the parks being shut down,
The bears are taking a larger roaming area.
You know, and they really are like Yogi the Bear. They do like campers. They like campers in a lot of ways, but they like to raid campsites, raid camp garbage dumps and all that. Well, with nobody being in the parks, the bears have actually expanded their range a little bit. We lost a lot. We had to go to a different place to get our apples this year because of that.
We are very proud that we buy our apples for our apple butter from Creech Orchard, which is near Kingdom Come, if you can believe that, and just over the mountain from Pine Mountain, one more mountain over to the mountain of Kingdom Come. And Creech Orchard, it's a beautiful orchard, and it's located in several different plots. And he has some up on the mountain and some down on the hill, and we've got one particular apple that I like to use that is it's an heirloom apple, and I'm not going to say which one it is, but it's one that I really, really love, and I think it makes all the difference when we put it in our apple butter. And the bears got it.
Yep.
They got the whole dang harvest last year at this orchard, and it was just mind-boggling. I mean, it's just mind-boggling that you would have bears that would eat all your apples.
Well, you don't think of it. You know, people worry about bears. Bears really are not. Most bears are not killers, as people think. Most bears are opportunists.
They're hungry right now, y'all.
but they're opportunistic. They eat a lot of vegetables. They eat a lot of.
They're omnivores. So
they eat a lot of fruit. They eat a lot of roots. They eat
bees.
They eat brood.
Larvae.
The bee brood box is what they want. Everybody always thinks of them like.
They eat the Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh with the honey. Well, they don't. It's not the honey they're after. They're actually after the larva to get that extra protein, and they will come upon if there's they're scavengers as well. They'll eat already killed, and they'll take other animals' kills. So the biggest problem you would have with bears would be if you were hunting and you had an open kill and they were trying to protect that or protect the cubs. So really, bears are not as dangerous in general. They're usually as afraid of you as you are them.
If I see one, I'm going to go the other way, y'all. I'm going to
steer around them. I agree with that.
I think if they, definitely am not going to provoke bears, and I certainly am not going to feed them. And Mom's got a little chihuahua, which wouldn't even make a bite. And poor old Sophie. Sophie hasn't ever met, an animal that she didn't like except for the deer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no. I want to stay away from the bears, and they're hungry right now, and I just think you need to stay where I'm at. So I'm real cautious of that when I go down to the farm, especially I'm just going to me and Sophie. I worry about that a little bit. Like I worry about the snakes, like I worry about, I worry a lot.
Well, the biggest thing about snakes and bears and all that is make your presence known. If you make a lot of noise and they know you're there, they really don't want a confrontation with you either. Usually if you make a lot of noise and don't go into places like provoke them, they'll leave you alone if you leave them alone. Just like people, most of the time. But this is the odd time of year for us. We've got a lot of our stuff done. Do we have to wait until...
It's the hurry up and wait time.
Yes.
We're still working on getting our peppers grown up, and we're going to have to go and get a few plants to fill in some of the things that we didn't do. We're still waiting on the state to approve some of our new products that we want to roll out with the Friends Drift In gourmet jams and jellies. We've got 2 or 3 of them sitting up there that we haven't heard back from.
Yeah, we'll make a phone call so we can find out.
Yeah, where we are with that. And then, of course, we have to worry about, what are we going to do in the freezer? Yeah. I still am struggling with that freezer. And, typically we've always spin things down, the kitchen cabinet, the pantry, the freezer. By March or April, traditionally in Appalachia, you're starting to spin all that down and get the holes. And this year, with everything being the way it was, we
cranked it up a little bit. So we went out and did a lot more preserving than usual. So, and we've been eating out of our freezers and out of our canned goods all winter. But we've still got quite a bit of a stock, so we're going to start cooking more and more.
Spin that down. We had rattlesnake beans last night. Y'all know we're the bean people. Yep. We had our rattlesnake beans last night with a piece of venison, and that was really good. That was really
That's
good.
what you call living off the farm right there. That was a deer that was killed off the farm. That was beans that we raised ourselves. And that's kind of what we want to get to. We would love to be completely self-sufficient. I mean, in this world, that's going to be a lot harder to do on any kind of a scale. I mean, you can do it in a small homestead, but you know, we still live in the community and everything. We want to be out and about and doing things, but we also want to have that to fall back on just in case something does happen.
Within the YouTube content creators community, you know, and that encompasses a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, and I follow who I like, and I know Charlie follows who he likes. And everybody is kind of just that uneasy right now. Of course, part of that is because of the, you know, just all the situations going on in the world, but part of it is just that in-between season. And MD Creekmore, I like MD Creekmore very much. He's down in eastern Tennessee, I believe. He's in Tennessee. And he's done a couple of really interesting videos lately, and one of them, we talked about, one of our first videos, we talked about what are the questions you need to ask about homesteading. And MD was talking about, well, the house that he had particularly bought, if he had it to do over again, he still loves the house, but he only had 3 acres of property, and he wished he would have had 5, you know, and then he was kind of feeling, you know, this time of year, you're stuck where you can't work and maybe you think too much. And then his other video was, you know, it's too late. Is it too late to start homesteading? You know, because of all the situations going on. I don't think it's ever too late. I think the thing that new homesteaders need to think about particularly is there are no hard and fast rules that say you have to grow everything you eat.
Yeah.
You know, those first 2 or 3 years, you're gonna have some troubles. Things aren't going to go the way you want. They're, you know, things that you're just not experienced with. Even when we're doing some crops that we haven't done, I mean, we've made mistakes. And, you know, and we have challenges. Certainly, we've not grown berries before. And we put
Not in a long time.
the berries we put out, we held them and held them and held them because the ground was so wet. We finally couldn't hold them anymore because we were afraid we were going to lose them. So we put out our plastic, we put our holes down, we put our berries in that ground. Really proud, got it all looking really good. And of course, the flood came. And so all that plastic, even though we used the really good plastic, it's a little bit of a mess right now, and it's certainly not doing what it needs to do. So we're gonna have to go in and really work on that. And we've been doing things, you know, we've been doing this farming 20 years, 20 or 30 years, but only, I guess, 10 years commercially,
Yeah.
and we're still learning. And I think that that's what you have to remember as a new homesteader. You know, you don't have to grow everything.
There's no shame to go to the grocery store.
No, there is no shame in going to the grocery store. You need to adjust your budget the first 2 or 3 years. You make sure you have a food budget put back. You go on and put food back until you can figure it out. You can't depend on your homestead right away. You know, you start easing into it, but it's just, there's no shame.
No, I mean,
and I think so many young people and so many people that want to take on this homestead, they think, oh, I've got to do it all just perfectly the first year. Ain't gonna happen, y'all.
It's just like everything in life. Take baby steps. One, as Guy said earlier, they said it's 1 foot in front of the other. Just keep on walking, and you'll get there. And that's kind of the way you gotta look at it. It's like, you know, and everybody can't raise everything. I mean, we don't raise our own milk cow.
Nope.
And we don't drink a lot of we don't drink a lot of milk. We cook with a lot of milk, but we don't have our own, and we don't raise any of our own meat at this point. You know, you can.
We have done
We've done it
poultry before, but you know, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of being tied down, and you know, I haven't been up for that for the last 2 or 3 years. We might get back to it, but
we'll get back to poultry at least.
Yeah, we'll have some eggs, but I mean, it's not something that is a big priority with us. Basically, I enjoy more the gardening. I like talking to the turkeys and I like talking to the chickens, but when there's 6 inches of snow on the ground, I don't much care to go out there and feed them. I just don't. I mean, I will do it, but I don't have to like it.
Yeah, and you know, the thing you gotta look at too is what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for yourself, or are you doing it to try to make money? We tried to make money raising eggs, and we did okay. I mean, we did okay. But we kind of figured out we were only really breaking even because the cost of feed and everything, and then the way the state of Kentucky works, you have to have new egg cartons, you have to have your name on them, you have to you have to wash them, you have to sanitize them. There's just so many steps to it.
There's a lot of
steps to do, and a lot of labor that you don't count. And always remember, if you're trying to make something to make money with, you got to figure out your labor involved as well.
You're worth a lot. You're worth a lot. You wouldn't work for minimum wage, but farmers often work for less than minimum wage. So you have to be able to know that you got to pay yourself first.
Always remember that in your pricing.
Yep, pay yourself first. We're in that iffy season, but pretty soon we're going to get you down on the farm. We're going to take you over to the commercial kitchen, show you a little bit more about our commercial jams and jellies. We just finished up a big batch of blackberry bourbon, and we did some we're getting ready to do strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah, strawberry moonshine.
Strawberry moonshine we always keep in stock. That's one of our best sellers, and we're really proud of that one. Check us out online at friendsdriftinn.com. You can order these. There's still plenty of time to get it in for Mother's Day. They do come in gift boxes. We ship throughout the United States. It's a family-owned business. We're a small business. We're a crazy business.
We're having fun.
We're having fun. We're growing a good life in Appalachia. I'm Joyce.
I'm Charlie.
We're Friends Drift In. See you next week.